Good morning and welcome to this morning's webinar. My name is Daryl Moon and I'll be your host today. This is our fourth webinar in our new series on best practices of managing population mental health, brought to you by Going on Offense and sponsored by Resilience Pro. Last week we showed how many organizations can implement a preventative maintenance program for their most valuable people, or their most valuable asset, their people. And we showed you how you can implement technology that monitors the well-being of your workforce at no cost. If you didn't get a chance to see last week's demonstration on that technology, the recording is posted on goingonoffense.com, and we would encourage you to check it out. Today's topic is on how to attract and retain top talent through supporting emotional well-being. Today we have a short presentation that I'm going to show you, so let me bring that up, addressing this issue. All right, we are currently in the middle of a pandemic, and clearly business leaders are justifiably focusing on the survival of their company. However, there's a second order mental health crisis that's emerging. And of course, this whole effort going on offense from the very beginning has been to proactively address this incredible crisis that we're experiencing, that of people struggling with emotional concerns. Since the outbreak, workers are 75% feel more socially isolated. 67% feel higher stress. 57% feel greater anxiety. 53% feel more emotionally exhausted. And this is a study done by Qualtrics and SAP between March and April of 2020. The American Psychiatric Association did their own study and found that 59% feel a serious impact on their day-to-day lives because of the pandemic. 36% experience serious impact on their mental health. 68% fear a long-lasting impact on the economy, and 69% feel like this is the most stressful time in their entire careers. 43% feel physically ill due to work stress, and 62% of all workers lost 1 hour per day in productivity. 32% have lost 2 hours per day in productivity. Human beings can handle change. We're very adaptable. However, we don't do well with uncertainty, and clearly the pandemic has created an enormous uncertainty, both economically, personally, and professionally. So what can leaders do? A study done by Deloitte went through the various stages of mental illness within a population and what employers can do and the ROI of each strategy. The first step that every employer should do, and is incredibly important and has the greatest ROI, is simply build a culture that's supportive and create awareness of the concerns, particularly emotional well-being and mental health. The ROI on this kind of a strategy is 8.4 to 1. Clearly, the best thing that employers can do to address proactively emotional and mental health concerns is simply create a positive, supportive culture and address and make aware this issue and the resources that employers make available to their employees. The second thing, once an employee has a life event, and clearly we're all experiencing a life event through this pandemic, is a proactive mental health support, meaning proactively reach out and support people who are struggling. 60% of population before the pandemic experienced mental health symptoms every year. So clearly, and last week we talked about how to implement a preventive maintenance program that proactively reaches out, monitors the population, and supports those who are struggling. The ROI, according to Deloitte, was 6.0 to 1 for that particular strategy. And then, of course, you have the reactive mental health support. And this is what we're mostly familiar with. Here's a phone number if you have problems, such as an employee assistance program or a crisis line. Call this number to get support. But remember, On average, people who experience mental health concerns wait 10 years before they reach out for help. And 57% never reach out for help. So if all we do is provide a phone number or a resource for people to reach out and help, not going to have the same impact as proactively addressing those or creating a culture that support people. The ROI on reactive support was 5.1 to 1. And then, of course, when people have serious mental illness, as their health declines in this funnel, which would be 9% of the population, now you actually have to deal with the treatment of the condition. And of course, that often comes through claims, through your health plan to deal with that, whether that's hospitalization, medication, therapy, counseling, whatever the case might be. Today, we're going to talk about that first level. How do you create, as an employer, the culture that supports emotional well-being and in order to attract and retain your top talent? Well, there's 7 steps that we'd like to discuss today that can create a culture and awareness that leaders can take. 1, open the door. 2, listen. 3, be consistent. 4, keep a pulse. 5, voice your commitment. 6, equip the supervisors. 7, communicate resources. Let's go through each one. So Harvard Business Review said that nearly 40% of people say their company has not asked them how they're doing since the pandemic began. So open the door, ask the question. 60% of employees are comfortable with managers proactively asking about their mental health, particularly during the pandemic. And 40% say that they actually want to be asked. So do a survey. Ask employees, how worried are you about the effects on you personally? How worried are you about the effects of the pandemic on the company itself? And what do you need to feel safe? You can create your own survey. We'll talk a little bit later about the technology that actually ask employees how they're doing with their emotional well-being. But ask the question, whether you use an outside organization to conduct it, whether you use a different department within the company to conduct it, open the door and ask the question. Number 2 is listen. Practice supportive listening. There's a difference between being empathetic and sympathetic. Employees want to know you feel their pain, so be empathetic. Help them understand that you truly appreciate, because we're all going through this, where they are, and seek to genuinely understand where they are. Probably one of the most important things you can do is connect with your employees and express genuine concern. Sympathetic means I understand, but here's what you need to do to take care of it. Empathetic means I truly understand and I feel with you the pain you're experiencing. So ensure that people feel heard. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable as a leader, as a manager. One of the most successful things you can do is reciprocate to build that trust. Express how you're concerned. We're all going through this. The entire world is experiencing the stress associated with the pandemic. So express that, be vulnerable. The sooner we realize we're not alone, the better we'll be at supporting one another through this crisis. Number 3, be consistent. Routinely talk about mental health. Don't just do it once, do it on some regular cadence. How and when to communicate, decide, make a policy, work that into the very fiber of your organization. 90% want weekly communication from their company, according to the survey in the Harvard Business Review. One of the most important things that employers can do is have managers talk to their employees about their mental health. Simply have a phone call. Ensure that people feel supported. Keep the pulse. Again, we talked about this last week. There's technology that every organization can implement at no cost that we make available to you that prompts through a text message asking employees how they're doing in each area of well-being. Pulse surveys to monitor emotional well-being can be incredibly effective at learning where your employees are. And that both is for the company as well as departments and teams. Break that down by group so you know where to focus. Understand trends so you can be proactive and reach out and provide support. Spot the problems early. We all know that in any preventive maintenance program, the sooner you identify a problem, the sooner you can fix it, and the cheaper it's going to be to fix it. Same thing applies to our most important asset, our people. Number 5, voice commitment. Support employees with a pledge from top management. Here's a suggested phrase you may want to include in that pledge. We recognize that mental health is a crucial part in overall wellness. Today, I invite you to join me in helping to do our part to promote mental health awareness and support within our company. 6, equip the supervisors. One of the things that we've discovered after managing population mental health for 20 years is that one of the most important things that can be done at a grassroots level is provide supervisors with the training and the tools to recognize, but then address and communicate their support and refer people into the resources that are available. Most companies offer resources, but one of the most important things we can do to really help people activate and engage those is to train supervisors on how to engage people in that help. Employees are 60% more likely to disclose a disability like emotional concerns or mental illness to their supervisor than to human resources. That was a study done by Cornell. And number 7, communicate the resources that are available. Most companies offer a tremendous amount of resources. Our goingonoffense.com website has tons of resources, ideas, suggestions, companies that are willing to support and provide resources. Ideas for resources and links to tremendous resources across the country. Make sure your employees are clear about what mental health resources are available to everyone within your company. Almost 50% of workers say that their company has not proactively shared what resources are available. People who say their company has proactively shared how to access mental health resources are 60% more likely to say their company cares about their well-being. Gene Meister put out an article in Forbes back in January, the top 10 HR trends that matter most in 2020 workplace. The number 1 top on the list trend is to focus on worker well-being. Employees expect their employer to be as concerned about their well-being as they are. And emotional well-being is at tremendous risk right now due to the pandemic. Now, I would invite those that are participating in today's webinar to submit any questions you might have about the content that we just went over, or now the demonstration I'm going to show about some additional dashboards that this technology that companies can implement includes. So again, feel free to use the control box in the webinar to submit any questions and we'll address those. Let me bring up this technology that we showed you last week, and let's show you a couple more things that is available to employers through this technology. Last week, we talked about the fact that you can actually trend each aspect of well-being, all 8 areas of well-being, including emotional and social and financial and so forth, through an outreach that comes in the form of a text where people can answer questions within 20 seconds so that they can see their trend in well-being, but also employers can view that and break that down by department, break it down by employees versus spouses or both. In addition to that monitor, there's a survey that's available through the technology that employees can complete that asks them more in-depth questions about their well-being. Covers many various aspects, and a part of those questions include questions about whether or not the benefits that employers offer are actually working to attract and retain employees. So I'm going to just kind of walk through this dashboard. Ask the questions. Do you appreciate the benefits offered by your employer? And do you appreciate the culture at your workplace? What attracted you to come to work here? Gather information from your employees. Was it pay? Was it culture? Was it benefits? Trend that over time. And then what is the likelihood that you'll stay? Is it pay? Is it culture? Or is it benefits? So that's one of the dashboards. Are we actually attracting and retaining employees through the resources that we make available, including benefits? The next one is healthcare satisfaction. Are employees actually satisfied with the health benefits that are being offered? Ask the question. Agree, neutral, disagree. I'm satisfied with the healthcare system available through my benefits. Or the healthcare system is easy to use and navigate. We don't ask often enough whether or not the second largest cost of doing business is even working for why we're offering it and what we want from it. So ask the question. And this technology can be implemented at any organization, and at no cost, you can begin to monitor these important elements. The healthcare system is there when I need it. The healthcare system provides quality and effective services. Wouldn't it be a great idea to actually know that and to know how your employees feel about that, and then trend that over time? Now, one more thing I want to show you that we didn't go over last week is that with the well-being dashboard that basically breaks down the well-being of your workforce and trends it over time, breaks it down into each of the 8 categories, is the employees, as they're completing the survey that asks the questions about their overall health and attract and retain and so forth, have the opportunity to weight each of those elements of well-being. And it's interesting to find that in not everyone's case are they all equally the same. And by asking the question, employers can find out whether or not social well-being is very important. In this case, it's very important. Emotional well-being is absolutely essential and very important to the employees. Occupational well-being, well, maybe not quite as important to some people. And intellectual well-being, maybe not as high as emotional. Physical well-being ranks up there as one of the top things. Nutritional well-being also ranks up there pretty high. So does personal, and financial, maybe not quite as high. So again, this is a part of what's available that we're encouraging companies to implement to begin to trend and survey and monitor how well the benefits that you're offering are actually working at attracting and retaining employees, how they feel about them, and which areas to focus on as a company to improve well-being. All right, so I'm going to now take questions. Looks like we have a couple questions that have come in from the members. Let's address those now. How do you get people to take the survey? Well, incentives are very effective at engaging people in simple tasks. They're not very effective at engaging people in complex behavior changes. So our experience shows that if you want someone to do a simple task like complete a survey, whether it's a comprehensive survey or something that's going to take 20 seconds, incentives work. Those incentives can come in lots of different forms, whether it be a raffle or a coupon for completing something. The size of the incentive is directly tied to the percent of employees that will actually engage and participate. All right. How can organizations get this technology? Well, simply contact us and we'll be happy to implement it for you. It doesn't take a lot of time. It can be implemented very quickly. And you can reach us through the website goingonoffense.com and use the contact us page to simply reach out and say, I'm interested in learning more about implementing this technology at my workplace. How long does it take to implement? Doesn't take long at all. You can implement this within a few days. And again, depending on the kind of communication strategy you want to use to encourage your employees to participate, it might take weeks, it might take a month or so, but very simple to implement. Other questions? How do you get senior management to recognize the importance of this topic? A very good question. That is usually the greatest struggle. And many times the culture within an organization, the focus on emotional well-being or any kind of health and wellness is often directly tied to the top leadership. If it's important to them, it'll be important and it'll be a part of the culture. If it's not, it's much more difficult to build that in. But there are many cases where, whether it's human resources department or other department managers, simply make a case, make a presentation, talk to senior management and address how important it is right now, especially during the pandemic. And I think that the windows are open. In fact, we're hearing constantly that people are far more willing to address and discuss this topic of mental health and emotional well-being due to the stress that we're all feeling because of the pandemic. So what a great time to bring this to top management and express your desires to see that you build this into the culture and the fiber of the company. Because again, culture and making people aware is the greatest ROI at addressing mental health concerns. And let me remind you that of all of the risk factors out there, smoking, poor physical activity, poor nutrition, doesn't matter what they are, there's no risk factor that even comes close to emotional well-being, like depression or the risk factor of uncontrolled stress. The impact that those two risk factors have on healthcare claims, both medical claims and mental health care claims, tower over all the other risk factors. So it is incredibly important. And remember that healthcare costs are often the second largest cost of doing business. So it is important not only to the culture of the company and the productivity of the workforce, but to the bottom line. Okay, not seeing any more questions. I want to remind you that Resilience Pro is the sponsor of this series of webinars, and a brochure describing the solution is available to download right now through your control box. I would also mention that the PowerPoint presentation that we went over is also available through your control box to download. Next week's webinar in this series of best practices of managing population mental health will be on filling the holes left by many employee assistance programs. My guest panelist next week will be Cameron McBride, who's the CEO of Blomquist Health Solutions, a very generous employee assistance program that's been our partner in managing population mental health for over 20 years. We'll talk about how an employee assistance program can play an incredibly important role on how those services are offered and who those services are offered to, and how to get people to engage in those services at addressing proactively the emotional and mental health of your workforce. A few of our future topics in this series will be how to be proactive, how to solve the provider shortage crisis across the country, which now more than ever is a crisis. And another topic we'll be addressing is specialized case management. We want to thank you for your participation today and wish you the best of emotional and mental health in your own personal life. And we would welcome you back as we do these huddles or these webinars each Wednesday. We'd like to see you next week. Again, thanks for participating and have a wonderful day.